Ladies, gentlemen, Speakerhead Squad, what is going on? It is your boy Speakerhead, and welcome back to another video. When it comes to Transformer collections, I feel like everyone has to have at least one Optimus Prime. And I've personally owned multiple Optimus Primes of different sizes. But when it comes to Legend Scale, I needed an Optimus Prime for my collection. So when I saw Newage was releasing their version of Optimus Prime, I knew I had to pick him up. But today we're going to be taking a look at Newage Optimus Prime. Now roll an intro. But before we get into this review, if you enjoy any of this sort of content, make sure to like and subscribe. It really does help me out. Also, friendly reminder that one like equals one pat for my little buddy Doug here. Say hi, Doug. Also, if you enjoy any of the music in this video or just want to support the channel in general, it's all part of my royalty-free music label, Speakerhead Studios. All the music on this label is completely royalty-free, so go ahead and use it for any of your content creating needs. Finally, I want to mention if you ever want to catch me live, I do stream over at Speakerhead Live on YouTube. But now that we got all that out of the way, let's get into the review, and I'm super excited about this one. But of course, to start off the review, let's talk about accessories. And this guy comes with quite a few different accessories. So to start off, he comes with a signature trailer that is sculpted nicely and has nice paint details. So the trailer has two different stands that give it support. The first one is the small one that folds down from the front, and the other one is the two larger ones that fold out to the side. Now talking about the back of the trailer, the doors can open up and it does have a ramp, but for some reason it doesn't reach the ground. You can still act like cars are driving up it, but I do find it strange that it doesn't actually reach the ground at all. Now moving on to the inside of the trailer, it has some nice sculpt work on the inside doors and on the ground. And then it does come with that little repair bot that lives inside Optimus Prime's trailer. And this guy has an articulated antenna and an articulated claw arm. His cockpit also is able to open as well, which is cool. Then he does have two hinge joints that can get him pretty high up. Then finally he's attached to a ball peg at the top that can get him a full 360. Then something interesting you can do is you can detach the entire robot from the trailer and the back wheels and combine them. Then you have a little mobile robot you can display, which I think is also a pretty cool feature. Then moving on to the next accessory, he does come with a little roller, which I do love. Then a cool little feature he has is that if you flip this back piece up, it reveals a little hole you can plug the trailer into, and you can actually have roller dragging the trailer. And I absolutely love this, and this is usually how I display it if I don't have it connected to Optimus Prime. Moving on to his next accessory, he comes with the signature blaster, which is sculpted nice, and it does have some nice silver details painted on. The next accessory this guy comes with is his axe from that one episode, and it's sculpted in a translucent yellowish orange. Then finally he's going to come with two closed hands to hold his blaster, two open hands with articulated wrists, and two pointing hands, which to me look kind of goofy, so I like using them for goofy poses. Hey everybody, Speakerhead from the future here. So there was one accessory that I did mention briefly, but I didn't really talk about at all. And honestly, I'm surprised I completely forgot about it considering how iconic it is. And that's going to be the matrix of leadership that lives in Optimus's chest. Overall, the sculpt on this matrix isn't terrible, and it is painted in nice gold and silver paint. And it does have a little bit of blue in the center. It does look nice, but you can't have Optimus hold it in any way, shape, or form, so you just have to have it sit in his chest. But that's all I needed to say, so back to the rest of the video. But now that we're finally done with the accessories, let's finally talk about the figure. And to start off, let's talk about sculpt. So right off the bat, I'm gonna just say it, I absolutely love the sculpt of this guy. I know there are a couple things that people don't like about him, but we will talk about those things in a little bit. But personally, I really do love the sculpt of this Optimus Prime. Starting with the head, I absolutely love the sculpt of it, and I have no complaints. Talking about the arms fast, they are nice, but I don't like the little gaps they have in the back of the arms. I think that's a little sloppy, especially considering Legend Scale are pretty good about not having any sort of gaps. But overall, the sculpt of them is very nice. Now talking about the chest, and I know this is where most people have an issue. So for the chest of this figure, there's a fake chest that swivels up that covers up the alt mode chest. And it does leave a gap in the figure, and in pictures it does look kind of bad, but in person it's not as bad as you'd think. Whenever I'm looking at my figure, I really don't notice it at all. I know a lot of people will have issues with it, and I completely understand, but I personally don't have a problem with it. Something else people really don't like about the chest is that it has clear windows that you can see the matrix in. Personally, I don't mind it too much, but I do think having painted windows would have done a little better. But excluding the gap in the upper chest, I absolutely do love the sculpt of the torso. Moving down to the waist and upper legs, I do like the sculpt on them. As I say with a lot of my figures, it's not too complicated, but I do like the little details they do have. Now moving down to the lower legs and feet, I think they look pretty good. Something I'm not a huge fan of is that you can slightly see the transformation lines in the front of the legs. It's not too noticeable, and honestly, it's not that big of a deal, but it's something I did notice at first. But besides that one little nitpick, I think the legs do look great. But when it comes to the overall sculpt of this guy, I think that Newage absolutely nailed it, even though there are a couple little minor flaws with it. But now finally ending with the 360 of this guy, I think he does clean up pretty well. But now that we talked about sculpt, let's talk about the paint on this guy. Just like many other New Age figures, this guy is pretty much painted head to toe. So on the face, there's going to be paint on the upper head crest, the face, and the mouth guard. And then his eyes are going to be painted in a beautiful pearlescent blue. Moving on to the arms, the smokestacks are painted in a nice silver. And then the rest of the arms is going to be painted in a nice glossy red except for the joints. Moving on to the upper torso, it's painted in that beautiful red I mentioned before. And then he does also have some nice grays painted on there as well. Then he has that same nice silver paint from the smokestacks on the grill as well. Then finally, he does have a tiny bit of orange painted at the top, which is a nice little detail. The last thing I do want to mention about the chest is that the part where the head connects to the body is not painted at all. It's just going to be plain plastic. But the rest of the body is going to be painted. Moving down to the waist and upper legs, the only paint that's going to be on them is that nice yellow. And then on the butt plate, there is going to be some blue that's painted on as well. Then finally, moving down to the lower legs and feet, the gas tanks on this side are painted in that nice silver we talked about before. The legs are painted in a nice dark glossy blue. And then finally, there is a little gray on the toes. But as I always say about the paint job for New Age, they absolutely nailed it on this figure. And I'm glad they did a very good job on this figure because it's Optimus Prime and he's going to be the main one that people look at. Or at least the main one people recognize. But now that we're done talking about paint job, let's talk about the posability of this guy. So starting with the head, it's got a ball joint on the back of the head so he can look all the way up in 360, no issue. Moving down to the arms, they can go all the way out to the side. And they can do a full 360, no issue. Talking about the lower arms, it has a bicep swivel and it has an elbow bend to only 90 degrees. I personally wish it had a little bit more than that, but it's not terrible. Moving down to the waist, it has an ab crunch that can go both forward and back. And then of course he does have a waist swivel. Now moving down to the waist real quick, he does have a second hinge you can use as a second ab crunch if you'd like. It does break up the sculpt a little bit, but you can use it for extra posability if you'd like. Now moving down to the upper legs, they can go all the way out to the side, all the way forward, and all the way back. Moving down to the knees, it's on a double joint that can get you as far as you'd ever need. Then finally moving down to the feet, they're on ball pegs that can get you ankle tilt up, down, and to the side. When it comes to articulation, it's overall fantastic, especially around the waist section. That's fantastic articulation with that double ab crunch. But now that we're done with articulation, let's move on to transformation. So when it comes to the transformation of this guy, it's definitely not your easiest Optimus Prime transformation, but it's definitely not the hardest. It's a lot easier than your average Masterpiece Optimus Prime transformation, but it's a lot more difficult than your average mainline Optimus Prime transformation. But overall, I do have a fun time with this transformation. Something I will mention is that I'm pretty sloppy when it comes to my transformations, especially when it comes to a figure that I'm not too used to, so I did scratch the paint in some parts. Especially when it comes to parts that have to tab in, a lot of the paint on there has started to scratch off. I did want to mention this in case you transform your figures a lot because it is prone to happen. But I will say, as long as you're careful about the transformation, you shouldn't have too many paint scratch issues. At least in not any major parts that you'll notice too much. And like I said, any major paint scratches you might notice on mine are my fault because I'm sloppy with my transformations. But besides that, the transformation overall isn't that difficult, and as long as you're careful, you shouldn't have too many issues. But then it finally comes out to a very nice looking alt mode. Now talking about the alt mode, I think it does clean up very well. So this is where I really like the fake chest because I think it does a better job with the alt mode compared to other Optimus Primes. Because they're trying to use the chest for the robot mode and the alt mode, but it really doesn't look the same. So having these secondary windows behind the main chest is really nice because it just gives it a better looking alt mode. Plus I really like the extra silver they added for the lights and the front grille. And then there is a hole in the back that you can secure the trailer onto so you can pull it around. But with the alt mode, once again, I think Newage did a great job with it. So now let's talk about my final thoughts on this figure. And I gotta say that I really do love this Optimus Prime. Even though it has a couple flaws that have turned people away from buying him, such as the gap in his chest, I personally wouldn't use it as a reason to not pick this guy up, especially if you love New Age figures. Because I personally think it's one of the better New Age figures that they've released. He has a fantastic sculpt, a beautiful paint job, and amazing posability. So if you're looking for a legend scale Optimus Prime to add to your collection, I personally highly recommend this guy. I absolutely love posing this guy and transforming him if it wasn't obvious by how much paint is scratched off mine. I'll tell you what, it's definitely not from 1 or 2 transformations, it's from a lot of transformations. But that's going to be my review on Newage Optimus Prime. Let me know what you think down below. Let me know if you already have him or if you plan on picking him up. Once again, if you enjoyed this review, make sure to like and subscribe, it really does help me out. And then once again, friendly reminder that 1 like equals 1 pat for my little buddy Doug. Finally, once again, if you enjoyed any of the music in this video or just want to support the channel in general, it's all part of my royalty-free music label, Speakerhead Studios, link in description. But thank you so much for watching the video, I appreciate it, and I'll catch all y'all in the next one. Peace!